Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine the most feared, maybe the most technologically superior weapon of World War II. The German Tiger I-heavy tank.
Right.
I mean, it had armor pretty much impervious to most Allied fire back then, and a gun that could, well, kill tanks from over 2 kilometers away.
Devastating firepower.
Exactly. Yet, history shows it was, strategically speaking, kind of a failure. So
Yeah.
the question we're digging into today, based on the sources you sent, isn't just about Allied guns. It's about something far simpler, almost mundane. What really stopped the mighty Tiger?
And what's so interesting here, I think, is how we learned the answer. It wasn't really from battlefield wreckage initially. It came from a specific tank, Tiger 712.
Ah, yes, the famous one.
Exactly. Captured completely intact in North Africa in 1943. Found abandoned, still functional in an olive grove near Tunis.
And not because it was knocked out.
No, not hit by shells. The crew left it because, well, total chaos, lack of support, and critically, they were out of fuel. Just ran dry.
So that one single, 57-ton machine became this huge intelligence windfall for the Allies in North Africa.
The biggest, arguably.
So we've looked through your sources, especially those Allied test reports from after the capture. And we're really dissecting this contrast, aren't we, between the tank's tactical brilliance, its sheer fighting power, and this deep strategic flaw.
That's the mission for this deep dive. Understanding why German engineering built this absolute masterpiece that, German logistics just couldn't keep running in the field.
Okay, so before we jump into its weaknesses, we have to acknowledge why it had such a terrifying reputation. I mean, the sources you provided mentioned Soviet reports early on, Eastern Front near Leningrad, January 43.
That's right. They were describing these things hitting T-34s from like 2,000 meters out. Imagine being in a T-34 facing that. The German crews must have felt almost invincible.
And that reputation arrived in North Africa before the tank really saw mass action there. The first few, just 3 Tigers, landed in Tunis late November 42, part of Heavy Panzer Battalion 501.
And initially, American forces were skeptical. Some intelligence reports came through, but they were almost dismissed, weren't they? Like, oh, that's just British propaganda, exaggerating things. They didn't quite believe the Germans had fielded something that advanced.
Yeah, but that disbelief evaporated quickly. February 43, Operation Frühlingswind, Spring, Windfade Pass, Kasserine Pass. That's when they met the Tiger head-on.
And the shock was immense. Look at the Battle of Sidi Bouzid. You highlighted this from the sources. Combat Command C attacks with 52 Shermans.
And they lose 46 of them. Just devastating.
It sounds devastating. But here's the kicker, the detail from the post-battle analysis you sent. Only one of those 46 Shermans was confirmed hit by an 88mm round. The Tiger's gun.
Wait, only one. So what took out the others?
Mostly smaller caliber guns, Panzer IIIs, Panzer I, standard German tanks.
So, hang on. If the Tiger was the big scary monster, how did the less powerful tanks do most of the damage? Was it just panic?
That's precisely it. The analyst literally called it Tiger Phobia. The psychological impact of knowing Tigers were out there, or even just rumored to be nearby, was enormous. It completely dwarfed the actual number of kills the Tigers were making initially.
Wow.
Yeah, Army medical officers actually documented this. Units would get completely stressed out, performance dropped, they'd demand huge artillery barrages or air support before they'd even think about moving forward if they thought a Tiger might be around.
So the Tiger wasn't just a weapon, it was a psychological force multiplier. It could paralyze enemy units without even firing a shot. That really does change the narrative, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It wasn't just about steel, it was about fear. Which brings us right back to that critical moment in May 1943. The Axis forces in Tunisia just completely collapsed. Something like 230,000 troops surrendered in less than a week.
Total chaos.
Utter chaos.
Yeah.
And in the middle of all that, the Allies stumble upon Tiger 712 sitting there near Tunis.
In that olive grove. And the key thing, it was functional. Not destroyed, not even sabotaged with demolition charges, just left.
Exactly. Full ammo load still inside. The crew just couldn't stay. Overwhelming Allied pressure, collapsing supply lines, and crucially, no fuel. They had nowhere to go.
So Lieutenant Sue, from the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers, he documented the find. And you mentioned Colonel George B. Jarrett. He saw it immediately, didn't he? This wasn't just a trophy. It was a gold mine of intelligence.
He knew this was their chance, a chance to really understand the machine, its strengths, and maybe, just maybe, its weaknesses, its limits.
And just getting it moved highlights the logistical challenge the Germans themselves must have faced constantly. This thing weighed nearly 57 tons.
Right. The standard American M31 recovery vehicles, they were designed for Shermans, maybe 30 tons.
Right.
They just weren't up to the job.
So what did they do?
It took multiple M31s working together, plus bulldozers, heavy tractors,
Right.
basically everything they could throw at it.
And it wasn't quick. The sources say the road trip from the olive grove to the port of Tunis, normally maybe a 4-hour drive, took 3 days.
3 days. And they moved mostly at night to avoid attracting attention or blocking roads. Just think about that effort. It shows you the kind of massive logistical train Germany needed just to shift one functioning tank a short distance. Imagine trying to support a whole battalion deep in enemy territory.
It's already painting a picture of vulnerability.
And it didn't stop there. Getting it onto the ship, the SS Samuel P. Bush, needed special heavy-lift cranes. Cranes rated for 70 tons or more because the tank plus the transport cradle weighed over 65 tons.
Then the voyage to Norfolk, Virginia, and finally onto a specially reinforced flatbed rail car to get it to Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland.
Arrived mid-July 1943. So the Allies finally had their hands on the beast. Now they had to figure out how it worked, and more importantly, how to beat it.
And that 6-month testing program at Aberdeen, running from July 43 to January 44, it really confirmed the tactical side of the Tiger legend. The American engineers, they were impressed, right?
Oh, absolutely. Genuinely impressed with the German engineering, the quality. First thing they looked at was the armor.
Which was thick.
Very thick, 100 millimeters on the front hull and turret. The gun mantlet, the bit around the gun, was even thicker, between 120 and 200 millimeters, depending on the angle.
So the conclusion was pretty stark.
Yeah, the official report basically said it was, and I quote, effectively invulnerable to most Allied anti-tank weapons when engaged frontally. They knew hitting it head-on with standard gear just wasn't going to work.
And then there was the gun, the famous 88.
The 88mm KWK 36L56, derived from their excellent anti-aircraft gun. It fired armor-piercing rounds at incredibly high velocity, over 900 meters per second. And the accuracy was phenomenal.
How accurate?
The test showed it could put 5 consecutive shots onto a target measuring just 16 by 18 inches at 1,200 yards.
That's astonishing accuracy for a tank gun of that era, like a sniper rifle.
Precisely. A sniper rifle on a 57-ton chassis.
Mhm.
And even the mobility features were quite sophisticated for such a heavy vehicle. It had those complex interleaf road wheels, a good torsion bar suspension system to handle the weight, and that advanced Maybach Olvar transmission.
8 forward gears, 4 reverse. Pretty complex.
Very complex. So tactically, if you were sitting in a prepared position or setting up an ambush over a short distance, the Tiger I was everything the legend said it was, a truly formidable machine in that context.
Okay, so Aberdeen confirms the armor is tough, the gun is lethal, tactical genius. But then they started digging into the engine, the fuel system, and that's where the wheels came off, metaphorically speaking.
Exactly. This is where the numbers just start to look really bad. They found the core strategic flaw. This amazing machine had an absolutely insatiable appetite for fuel.
Which made all those tactical advantages kind of unsustainable?
Deeply unsustainable. So the tank carried 532 liters of fuel. For listeners, that's about 140 U.S. gallons. Not insignificant, you might think.
Okay, and the German manuals claimed what kind of range?
They claimed a road range of 195 kilometers, which is about 121 miles. But that was under ideal conditions. Smooth roads, steady speed, no combat.
Right, parade ground conditions. But 121 miles still sounds okay-ish.
Well, the U.S. testing converted that to gallons per mile. On the road, it confirmed about 1.2 gallons per mile consumption. So, yeah, 140 gallons gets you roughly 116 miles on a perfect road. Already not great for long advances.
But the real shock came when Aberdeen tested it off-road, simulating actual battlefield conditions.
That's when the numbers became truly devastating. Cross-country testing, hills, mud, rough terrain. The stuff tanks actually encounter fuel consumption immediately jumped. It wasn't 1.2 gallons per mile anymore.
What did it jump to?
It went up to 4.125 gallons per mile.
4 gallons a mile. Okay, so do the math. 140 gallons divided by 4.125. That cuts the operational range down to, what, about 34 miles?
Just 34 miles. Think about that. An entire operational day might involve maneuvering much further than that.
That's barely enough to get across the contested area. But wait, it got worse, didn't it, when they simulated actual combat?
Oh, yeah. Combat simulation, that means lots of accelerating, braking, turning the heavy turret, idling while waiting, push consumption through the roof. It hit an astonishing 6.1 gallons per mile.
6.1 per mile.
6.1, which means your effective combat radius before that 140-gallon tank ran bone dry was down to approximately 23 miles.
23 miles? That's That's almost unbelievable. You build the most powerful, most expensive tank on the planet, and it can barely operate for a few hours in combat conditions before needing a massive refuel.
That's the logistical nightmare right there. It's the fundamental contradiction. Tactical dominance meets strategic paralysis.
And the overall fuel calculations just confirmed this wasn't sustainable at scale. An American Sherman battalion, about 53 tanks plus support vehicles, needed around 65,000 gallons a week.
Right. Now compare that. A German heavy tank battalion, maybe 20 Tigers plus their support, needed almost as much fuel, somewhere between 30,000 and 40,000 gallons a week, just for the Tigers themselves.
So nearly the same fuel footprint for less than half the number of tanks.
Yeah.
It's just unsustainable.
Completely. You simply couldn't field many of them or keep them moving for long without a perfect, uninterrupted supply chain right behind them. And this intelligence, derived directly from testing Tiger 712, it really did change how the Allies approached fighting these things. It wasn't immediate, but by October 1943, classified reports were circulating.
What did they emphasize?
They hammered home the point. The Tiger's critical vulnerability wasn't the thickness of its armor, it was its crippling dependence on fuel. That limited operational range, maybe 30 to 40 miles in combat terrain, was the weak spot.
So this led to actual changes in tactics.
Yes. By November 43, new training materials were going out to Allied crews. The advice was clear. First, obviously, avoid going head-to-head if you can help it. But crucially, use your mobility advantage. Remember the Sherman. Less than 1 gallon per mile. Much more agile, much longer range.
So the new doctrine was?
Force the Tigers to maneuver. Make them burn through that scarce fuel chasing you or reacting to flanking moves. Get them moving constantly. Then, when they inevitably stalled, low on fuel or maybe even completely dry, then you strike. Hit them when they're immobilized.
Exploit the logistical weakness, not just try to punch through the front armor.
Exactly. And we see this playing out in captured German records, too. The war diaries you looked at provide validation. Heavy Panzer Battalion 501's own diary, back in North Africa, showed their operational numbers dropping fast from 20 Tigers down to 14 by late December 42, mostly due to lack of spares and, crucially, fuel shortages.
And later in the war, Normandy.
Same story. Heavy SS Panzer Battalion 101, famous unit operating in Normandy, summer 44. Their diaries report knocking out 16 Sherman's, great tactical success. Right?
Sounds like it.
But then the entry laments that they completely exhausted their fuel after only about 4 hours of combat. They couldn't pursue the retreating Allies, couldn't exploit the breakthrough. The tactical win just evaporated because they couldn't sustain the advance.
Wow. And the ultimate example must be the Ardennes offensive, the Battle of the Bulge.
The absolute classic case. December 1944. The German spearheads, including Tigers and King Tigers, advanced maybe 60 kilometers, that's about 37 miles.
Right around that critical range limit we discussed.
Precisely. Then the fuel ran out. The offensive stalled. Movement stopped. And crews had to abandon perfectly good, functional tanks all over the Ardennes because the supply lines couldn't keep up. They literally gave the Allies operational heavy tanks because they couldn't fuel them. It was a strategic catastrophe born from logistical failure. So the final American assessment, this was March 1945, it summed it all up perfectly. The Tiger is exceptional design for individual combat, no doubt, but overall, a catastrophic failure in logistical sustainability.
And after the war, interrogations with the designers, the Henschel engineers, they basically admitted they knew this was a risk, didn't they?
They did. They admitted that concerns about fuel consumption were raised during the design phase. They knew it was going to be thirsty.
But they were overruled.
Overruled by the military leadership. The demand was for maximum armor, maximum firepower above all else. The assumption, which turned out to be fatally flawed, was that sheer combat superiority would lead to quick, decisive victories.
Before the logistics problems really had a chance to bite.
Exactly. They thought they could win fast enough that fuel wouldn't matter as much, a huge miscalculation in a long attritional war.
And this choice wasn't just flawed strategically, it was incredibly expensive. The sources mentioned the cost comparison.
Astronomical. One Tiger had cost about the same as 7 Soviet T-3485s, or 4 American M4 Shermans. Germany chose this highly concentrated, very expensive firepower over more numerous, sustainable, distributed capability.
Focusing on winning the firefight, but maybe losing the war of supply.
That's a good way to put it. And this whole episode, the analysis of Tiger 712, it really did become a lasting lesson.
Oh, so.
Well, the U.S. Army Command and General Staff College used it for years as a key case study in their logistics courses. It fundamentally influenced post-war American tank design.
Making sure they didn't repeat the same mistake.
Precisely. Things like operational range, fuel efficiency, ease of maintenance, these became critical design parameters. You see it in tanks like the M48 Patton, which achieved much better fuel economy, and even later with the M1 Abrams, where operational range and sustainability were built in from the start. So, when you really boil it down, what does this all mean for you listening? The Tiger's real Achilles heel wasn't a flaw in its armor or its gun. It was something much simpler. It just couldn't get enough fuel often enough to sustain itself across the vast distances and long campaigns of World War II.
And that U.S. Army Staff College takeaway really hits home. A weapon that cannot be sustained in combat is not an effective weapon, regardless of tactical performance.
It's a powerful statement, isn't it?
It is, and it leaves us with a pretty provocative thought, I think.
Yeah.
Something worth mulling over, especially when you look at military technology today. Well, if the Tiger could dominate any single battlefield it managed to reach, but its very design made it incredibly difficult to get it to distant battlefields or keep it moving once it was there, can that kind of tactical dominance ever truly make up for strategic unsustainability? Can you win battles but lose the war because your best weapon can't stay in the fight?
A crucial question. The answer, in the Tiger's case at least, seems pretty clear.
Indeed. Thank you for sharing your source material for this deep dive. We really hope this gave you some valuable insight into why the fearsome Tiger was ultimately defeated, not just by enemy action, but often by its own empty fuel tanks.